The weight of secrets. The champagne flute slipped from Maya's fingers, shattering across the marble floor of the art gallery. But it wasn't the glass that made her freeze. It was the voice. Well, Maya Rodriguez. Or should I say, wow. She turned slowly, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach, hidden beneath the flowing emerald dress. Derek stood there in his expensive suit, that same smirk she remembered from their breakup 6 months ago. "You got fat," he announced, loud enough that nearby guests turned to stare. His new girlfriend, blonde, impossibly thin, giggled behind her hand. Maya's cheeks burned. At 4 months pregnant, she was barely showing, but the empire waist, dress that had felt elegant an hour ago now, felt like a spotlight on her changing body. "Derek," she said quietly, trying to step past him. He blocked her path. "What happened to you? You used to actually take care of yourself. Remember how you'd spend hours at the gym?" He turned to his girlfriend. She was so obsessed with being perfect. Guess she gave up. Maya's eyes stung, but before she could respond, a warm hand settled gently on her lower back. "There you are, cara mia." The voice was deep, accented with Italian silk. "I've been looking everywhere for you." She looked up into Alessandro Greco's dark eyes. Her employer, her secret, the father of her child, and, though she tried not to think about it, the man whose mere presence made the Chicago underworld nervous. "Alessandro," she breathed. He smiled at her before turning his gaze to Derek, and Maya watched her ex's face drain of color. Everyone in Chicago knew the Greco name, even if they didn't know the specifics. Old money, old power, old rules. "Is there a problem?" Alessandro asked pleasantly, but his hand had moved to Maya's waist. Protective, possessive. "No," Derek stammered. We used to..." "You used to what?" Alessandro's smile never wavered, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Mock a woman at a charity event. Make her uncomfortable. Please continue." "I'm fascinated." The girlfriend had already disappeared into the crowd. "I didn't mean I didn't know she was with someone," Derek babbled. "She's not just with someone," Alessandro said softly. "She's with me, and she's carrying something far more precious than your opinion." His hand spread protectively over Maya's stomach. "My son." The remaining color fled Derek's face. I'm sorry. I didn't..." "No," Alessandro agreed. "You didn't. Think, that is." He turned to Maya, his expression softening completely. "Are you all right, Tesoro?" Maya nodded, but tears were streaming down her cheeks, not from Derek's words anymore, but from the tenderness in Alessandro's eyes. They'd been so careful. Their relationship had been a secret, built in stolen moments between her work as his event coordinator and his dangerous life. She discovered she was pregnant 2 months ago, and he'd been thrilled but protective to the point of paranoia. "I want to go home," she whispered. "Of course." He guided her toward the exit, then paused and looked back at Derek. "One more thing. The Rodriguez Women's Shelter, you know it?" Derek nodded nervously. "Maya founded it. She's been funding it from her own salary, working extra hours to help women escape men who make them feel small." Alessandro's voice was quiet, deadly. "She's done more good in this city than you'll accomplish in your lifetime. And if I ever hear that you've spoken to her, about her or near her again..." He let the sentence hang. Derek practically ran for the door. In the car, Maya finally let herself cry properly. Alessandro pulled her close, his hand never leaving her stomach. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm sorry I'm emotional. I'm sorry I'm gaining weight. I'm sorry..." "Stop." He tilted her chin up. "You are growing, our child. You are beautiful. You are strong. And anyone who made you feel otherwise is a fool." "You didn't have to tell everyone," she said. "About the baby. We agreed to keep it quiet until..." "Until when?" "Until you're safe." He laughed bitterly. "Maya, you'll never be completely safe with me. That's the reality. But I'm tired of hiding. Tired of pretending you're just my employee. Tired of watching you slip away after midnight like you're something to be ashamed of." "That's not..." "Marry me." She stared at him. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated. I was going to wait, do this properly, but seeing him talk to you like that, his jaw clenched. You deserve better than secret rooms and hidden glances. You deserve my name, my protection, my everything. Alessandro, your world, it's dangerous. I knew that going in, but a baby, which is exactly why you need more than my love. You need my ring, my family, every resource I have. He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket, and Maya's breath caught. I was carrying this around, waiting for the perfect moment. But maybe the perfect moment is when you need to hear this most. I choose you, not despite the complications, but including all of them. The ring was an antique emerald, her birthstone surrounded by diamonds. It was my grandmother's, he said softly. She was the only person who ever made my grandfather, a terrifying man, go soft. She taught me that real power isn't making people fear you. It's finding someone who makes you want to be better. Maya looked at this man, this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man, and thought about the past 6 months. How he'd listened to her dreams about the shelter. How he'd anonymously donated 10 times what she'd asked for. How he'd held her hair when morning sickness hit during a morning meeting. How he'd talked to her belly every night when they were alone, speaking Italian lullabies his mother had sung to him. Yes, she whispered. His kiss was soft, reverent, his hand cradling her face like she was something precious. 3 months later, Maya stood in the newly expanded Rodriguez Women's Shelter, now named the Rodriguez Greco Center for Women and Children. The anonymous donations had suddenly become very public when Alessandro had announced their engagement and his patronage. She watched him across the room, speaking softly with a young mother who'd just arrived with 2 small children. He'd hired extra security for the shelter, not obviously, but she knew. The night guards who looked like friendly grandfathers were actually retired, special forces. The neighborhood watch were his most trusted men. Her hand rested on her now obvious belly, 7 months along with a boy. They'd decided to name Marco after Alessandro's grandfather and James after her father. Mrs. Greco? A staff member approached. There's someone here to see you. She says she needs help. Maya turned, and her heart stopped. Derek's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now, apparently, stood in the doorway with a black eye and a trembling lip. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. I saw the news about this place. About you. And I remembered. That night at the gallery, your fiancé said you helped women. I need help. Maya glanced at Alessandro. He'd noticed, was already making his way over, his expression carefully neutral. Of course, Maya said, reaching for the girl's hand. That's what we're here for. You're safe now. The girl, Christina, she said her name was, broke down crying. I'm so sorry. About what I did. What he said. I laughed, and that was... Shh, Maya soothed. You were in a bad situation. I understand. Let's get you settled, and then we'll talk about next steps. Alessandro appeared at Maya's elbow as Christina was led away by a counselor. You have the biggest heart, he murmured, kissing her temple. She needs help. I know, and I love that about you. But I'm still running a background check on Derek and getting a restraining order drafted. He smiled at her expression. What? I can be supportive and protective. Maya laughed, leaning into him. What am I going to do with you? Love me, he said simply. Raise our son. Build this empire of compassion you've started. And let me stand beside you while you change the world, one person at a time. From across the room, Christina watched them, the pregnant woman who'd shown her kindness when she deserved none, and the infamous man who looked at his fiancée like she'd hung the moon. She thought about Derek's cruelty, his mockery, his eventual violence when she'd tried to leave. And she thought about how sometimes the weight we carry isn't just physical. Sometimes it's the weight of secrets, of shame, of believing we deserve the cruelty dealt to us. Maya had carried her own secrets, a pregnancy, a relationship, a growing life inside her. But she'd never let that weight crush her spirit or her compassion. As Maya walked past, she squeezed Christina's shoulder gently. You're going to be okay, she promised. And one day you'll help someone else too. That's how we heal, by lifting each other up. Christina nodded, tears streaming down her face. And for the first time in months, she believed it. Outside, the Chicago skyline glittered in the evening light. Inside the shelter, women and children found safety, hope, and a future. And in the center of it all stood a woman who'd turned her ex's cruelty into clarity, her secret into strength, and her compassion into a legacy. Sometimes the cruelest words reveal our greatest truth. Not that we've changed for the worse, but that we've grown into exactly who we were meant to become. And sometimes the weight we carry becomes the strength that lifts us and everyone around us higher than we ever imagined possible.